Okay, this is going to hopefully explain to you what you need to do for Unit 16 Sports Coaching Assignment 1. And you can see there that it's about the roles, responsibilities and skills associated with being a coach. And this image is on the front of the assignment brief and represents Sports Coach UK, which is a really sort of central organisation to promote sports coaching and develop the quality of coaches in the UK. Okay, so when you open your assignment brief, this is what you'll find. The first sheet is the mark sheet, and this is what I will use to give you a grade and write some comments and feedback to you. You'll then see the student review sheet. Now you obviously will need to fill in this every single time you submit an assignment, and it has two purposes. One, for you to go through each of these checklists before you submit to check that you have achieved what you need to do, and secondly for you to review your progress whilst doing the work for this assignment, how well you felt you did and any issues you may have had during the assignment. We then go on to the sort of front cover where again it explains or describes what assignment you're doing, and moving on to the scenario. Now I'm just going to skip through this assignment brief very quickly. Here you get the scenario, the assessment criteria, a declaration which you must sign before you submit the work, a list of the tasks you need to do for this assignment. This green is quite an important bit. This is what the specification says that you need to perhaps think about including in your assignment. And then we go on to the actual tasks that are assessment criteria reference. So each task should be quite clear what you need to do to complete this work. So I'm just going to go through each of those bits of information a little bit slower and a bit more clearly. So going back to the unit specification, this assignment requires you to look at roles and responsibilities and skills associated with a coach, and each task will address those separately. And make sure that you just check these lists of information. They very much align with the textbook and our discussions in class, and it's what you need to think about including. Again, very critically, these are the assessment criteria for this assignment, and you can see you've got quite a lot of criteria to fulfill. Pass and merit related to the 4 roles and the 4 responsibilities, and make note that it's describing and explaining 4 roles and 4 responsibilities to achieve P1 and M1. Going down to P2 and M2, you need to describe and explain 3 skills. So we've got 4 for that bit, 3 for that bit. And then eventually, to go on to achieve distinction, you need to compare and contrast roles, responsibilities and skills of different coaches in different sports. So going on to the specific assignment scenario, and students that do well explain their work through the scenario. Students that get referrals tend to get their work sent back and unmarked because they have ignored the scenario altogether. So it's really important that you check this out. And you can read this a little more closely from the assignment brief, but this is the key bit of the scenario. You, the chairperson of your sports club, has asked you as a senior coach to explore the techniques available and produce a feedback report to indicate the value of each. So in other words, to evaluate the techniques and roles and responsibilities of coaches and feedback to the board. So moving on to task 1. There is a template on the VLE that you can use to start you off for this task, and you need to describe and explain 4 roles of different coaches in different sports. So if you then describe roles just using football coaches or managers as an example, you will get a referral. You need to show that you can apply these roles to different sports, and to be honest, a better explanation will cover individual sports or team sports, and this goes towards P1 and M1. And here are the sorts of roles that you might talk about: an innovator, friend, manager, trainer, role model, educator, and you've got to pick 4 out of those to describe and explain. We will talk about different coaching styles, and we will talk about what might make these effective in certain situations, which might link into your distinction task. And here is the slide, which is the template that you have. I've prepared this for you, and you will basically need to write 1 role there. So you might say friend, and then in this box you describe and explain it. If you just do superficial descriptions, you'll get pass. If you can explain what you think about this role in relation to different sports, you'll be looking at more merit level. So pass is more descriptive, merit has more explanations and more examples, and make sure you give sporting examples, really important. So I'm looking at role 1, role 2, role 3, role 4. And I've put a brief example here to try to give you the idea of what would be a pass level response. So an important role of coach can have is being a role model to players. They are looked up to by younger players. They can be positive or negative role models. This is just 3 statements. It doesn't give any depth or any explanation and doesn't really give an example. So how do we make that merit level for an answer then? We would add reasoning, and probably the most important word you can have in merit level work is because. So this was our original statement, but now I'm adding the reasoning because young players might be inspired by them and therefore try to copy them. Here's an example. David Beckham is a positive role model, as that's a similar word to because. He is sportsmanly and fair and plays within the rules. So that would be a merit level type of response. So task 2. Using the template provided, create an academic poster again. So just basically add another slide to describe and explain 4 responsibilities. Again, different coaches and different sports. And these are the responsibilities that you can pick from. You've got to pick 4 from these: legal obligations, insurance, professional contact, and so on. So have a look at that. We will obviously discuss them, and you pick 4 to describe and explain. Bearing in mind the current sort of legal climate of how you should and shouldn't behave as a coach with that duty of care, it's very important that you understand these concepts. And there's lots of stuff in the news, and there's definitely some videos on the VLE for you to have a look at also. Task 3, create your own academic poster to describe and explain at least 3 skills. So 4 roles, 4 responsibilities, and 3 skills. And this is for P2 and M2. So task 1 and 2 was towards P1 and M1, and this task is towards P2 and M2. And here are the choices. Skills are listed here. You've got to pick 3 of those to describe and explain. Again, you're presenting it on a slide in PowerPoint, following on from my original template. And remember, a lot of this links in with your community sports leaders leading and volunteering, and will be really important for the latter assignments in this unit. And of course, valuable life skills. Being able to work as part of a team or take on leadership roles is really important in life, so they're very important for you to understand. Finally, task 4, ensuring that you use examples of different coaches from different sports, compare and contrast their roles, responsibilities and skills. So the distinction task, D1, requires you to talk about all 3 and compare and contrast them. And this is just a reminder of all the things that you might be comparing and contrasting for D1. So how do we compare and contrast as a skill? So you need to, within this, pick out any similarities between 2 types of coaching situations. Maybe the role of a certain coach as a friend or the role of a certain coach as an educator. Are there any similarities in those 2 roles or within certain sports? You also might need to pick out differences and identify any distinct differences. Somebody being an instructor might be quite formalised and less friendly than the role of the coach as a friend. Again, you must use a range of coaches in sports, and your writing style and how you write about these similarities and differences is really important here. And make sure you include all 3 elements for distinction. Here's again an example. So this was our original example with the explanation, and I've added similarly. So this is a similarity. Similarly, Ellie Simmonds is a positive role model for disabled athletes following her success. However, in contrast, so this is a difference. In contrast, somebody is a negative role model, yet in contrast, so this is showing a difference. And that's the sort of language you need to use when you're showing compare and contrast. And I just finally want to talk about how to analyse the sort of distinction level higher order thinking work that will come in many assignments, and how you might go about that. It might be comparing and contrasting, but you need to basically show that you can think independently. So you might explain one perspective and then explain an opposing perspective. You might talk about one coach's responsibilities and then oppose that by something contrasting, something different. But it's very much about you thinking independently, thinking critically, not just accepting that everything is as it is, but questioning things or contrasting things, discussing things. Here's an example. These are actually the common verbs that you might be asked to do for distinction: to analyse, evaluate or discuss, all of them requiring you to put different perspectives or points of views. So here's our original explanation. And I've put, there is, however, a vicious circle in that if your sport is not televised or seen by young people, then the role models of that sport cannot be copied, and young people might choose to learn, might not choose to learn that sport. So it's almost like the however is the linking word there that says, however, something different or something opposing, and then you make your point. So that's kind of analytical phrasing. So hopefully now you will understand the requirements of Assignment 1, Sports Coaching, which is Unit 16, and the 5 assessment criteria that you can achieve doing this. Remember, 4 roles, 4 responsibilities, 3 skills, and in the end when you compare and contrast you use all of those elements in your distinction work. And it's really important that you use different coaches and different sports.